Hello, hello. My name is Tamara Stewart. I am the Assistant Vice President of Grant Management here at Mississippi Home Corporation, and I want to welcome you and thank you for considering to apply for the Emergency Solutions Grant 2023 funding. I will be going step by step through the application. I will only be providing an overview to help new agencies go through the application process or returning agencies. New agencies, I am so glad you're considering this grant to help increase resources in your community. Returning agencies, you have done a great job over the years, and we look forward to working with you again. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to call me directly or reach out to Faye McCall. We will go step by step through the process. Once again, this does not mean that you cannot give us a call. So feel free. If you have any questions or problems with the application, feel free to reach out to us. So let's start. To find our application, you must go to our website. Our website is mshomecorp.com. mshomecorp.com. When you go to our website, this will be the home page. You need to first go to federal grants, go down to specialized housing, and you will find our HUD programs. Right now, we're accepting applications for both the ESG and HARP grants. However, I will go through the ESG application for you. You click on there. First thing you will see, I would like y'all to go through is our NOFA. Let's look at the timeline. The 2023 ESG award for the state is $2.3 million, about $2,341,416. All eligible ESG activities will be allowed this grant year, which includes rapid rehousing, homeless prevention, street outreach, shelter, and HMIS services. If you are not familiar with the funding categories with ESG, I do recommend that you read our application manual, also our program policy and procedure manual, and the federal regulations 24 CFR 576. The application NOFA was announced on June 14th. Application was open the same time. The deadline for submitting your application is July 31st by 4 p.m. After that, we will have a ranking and scoring period, and they will go to the board from there. Application must be submitted to us digitally by the date of July 31st, 4 p.m. Hard copies must be mailed to us directly to the attention. We do anticipate that the hard copies might come in a little later due to snail mail. However, we want you to respect the deadline and time allotted for this grant. All right, now let's look at what else is available on our website. Critical information for you to look at. When looking to apply for ESG, I do strongly recommend that you look at our application manual. You also look at our program application notice. Print off the application checklist before you submit your application to ensure that you have a complete application packet. Application packets that are not complete will not be accepted. If you're new to the program, get familiar with the regulations. Read our policy procedure manual and 24 CFR 576. Other attachments here are needed depending on the type of application you are submitting. To download our application, you click on the ESG application and go ahead and download the file so we can open it up and start the application process. Okay. Let's get started. I'm going to make it a little bigger so it'll be easier for you to see. So I'll bring it over here. Okay. When you open up the application, you should start with the application information. If your application did not open up on this tab, please go and start with this tab, application information. This is an Excel document. We have it locked, so you can't enter new cells. However, it is Excel. You might have some glitches. If you do see glitches, let us know. We have the application open and close date once again. At the beginning, we also have more information on how to submit your application, where you should submit it. When you're still sending your application electronically, make sure you put it in the subject ESG 23 application so it can be easily found. Also, when submitting your application, it may be huge, right? You have a lot of attachments. We don't want a bunch of emails. Please try to make it one email. So what you need to do is put all your information in a folder. Zip the folder and send us your zip folder with all the attachment in one email. You must also mail your hard copy. If you're having difficulties creating a zip file, or if it's still too big, feel free to reach out to us so we can help provide some workaround. You can do 2-year application cycles. 2-year application cycles are only for agencies who have experience providing ESG services or services through the ESG grant. This is not for new agencies. And apply using a 2-year application cycle, the only benefits you will receive if awarded is that you do not have to write an application the second year. When you do your 2-year application and if you're awarded the funds that you received the first year, that's not guaranteed that you receive the same amount the second year. Funding amounts is based on the amount of funds that's awarded by HUD, which is different every year, may change, and also the number of agencies that we have applied. And then we will do a ranking process based on outcomes of your project to see where you score, and your scoring will impact how much funds you receive. To be eligible for a 2-year application, if you must prove that you have spent at least 90% of your previous grant funds before applying, and that's within the grant contract time. So by the end of your previous grant, you must provide evidence that you have reached or will reach the 90% requirement. If you have additional questions regarding 2-year application cycles, please contact me directly. Also read our application manual and read the information in detail listed here. This year, we do have funding caps. Application will be accepted with no minimum of $75,000 in request and no more than $500,000 in request. So when you're applying, you cannot request for more than $500,000 and no less than $75,000. The minimum of $75,000 does not guarantee that you will receive no less than $75,000. You may receive less than $75,000 depending on how much agencies that apply and the ranking process. However, we will not accept a request less than $75,000. Scoring factors. We do have points. All of the points should add up to 100%, 100 points, if you are a returning agency. If you are a new agency, the maximum amount of points you can receive is 72 points. A scoring factor. Any agency that receive less than any returning agency that receive less than 75 points will not be considered for funding. New agencies can receive less than 72 points. However, they cannot receive less than 65 points to be considered for scoring. Details about that can be defined later. The 65 for new agencies may be flexible. The 75 for returning agencies is not flexible. Table of contents. Consider your table of contents as your cheat sheet or your checklist. We do have a checklist on our website, but this is additional checklist to make sure that you have everything that we're requiring of you. In your complete package, you must have all four parts listed here. In part 1, you should include your cover letter, the executed application, which is this Excel document. This is the application. If you're a shelter, you must provide site control documents. If you're a returning agency, we need your ESG policy procedural manual. If you are a new agency, we must receive your policy and procedure manual within 30 days of your submission of the application. In section 2, we must receive the following documents: article of incorporation, your bylaws, certificate of good standing. You can receive that online. Verification of your status of 501c3. Your list of board members. We need your board members list, their titles and their contact information, your agency organization chart, your staff titles, volunteers, the programs they work with. Is critical that we know which programs they're working with. Key staff resume. We also need verification of drug-free workplace certification as required by 24 CFR 576407A. This form is available on our website. Drug-free workplace certification policy must also be added to your policies. You must also have verification of shelter only for general purpose local government, verification from your local government that your shelter is allowed to be in the area. That form is available on our website. And a copy of your single program audit. Depending on how much funds you have, we must get verification that you did a single audit or some type of financial record, depending on how much funds the agency has as a whole. Section 3, you must receive a copy of your IRS Form 990. We must receive Section 3 form from HUD. Then that's only specific depending on your volunteers. And if you're doing construction or maintenance work at a shelter, you're required to engage the homeless population to do that job, and this form will be needed. Match documentation. Annual ESG is a dollar for dollar match. It's a lot of things that are accepted as match, not just cash. You have in-kind and cash match. You also can match your grant with other grants. Please look at the manual to identify appropriate match documentation. The match must be within the requested time period to be considered. Environmental reviews. This process must be started at program application. So once you submit your application to us, you must reach out to Ms. Shirley to start the environmental review process. Section 4, you must also provide us with your verification of your experience and capacity. This is attachment A. On this Excel application, one of the tabs says attachment A. Describe in detail your agency's experience with federal grants or regular state grants or other grants, private grants. Attach your MOUs. Any MOUs you might have, memorandum of understanding with other agencies to improve capacity and increase services will help give you a strong application. So attach that information. COC letter. If you are connected to a COC, we have 3 COCs in the region. If you are connected to the COC, please provide that letter. Past performance report. If you are an existing agency, you must complete the past performance report. If you are a new agency, you don't have to complete that section, but if you are a new agency that has federal funds or had federal funds in the past, then you must provide us that past performance report. And any other attachments that you want to include to give us a strong application, please include that. We do look at the attachments and read your application, so please The more information you can provide us, the more partnerships that you can demonstrate that you have will help give you a strong application. Application info. So let's start the application process. I am going to go through this application like I am at an agency applying for the first time for ESG funds. And I'm going to go step by step inputting the information. So the first question it asks is select one. Are you a first-time ESG applicant? I am. It says here that returning agencies can select to apply for a 2-year grant or 1-year grant. I'm not a returning agency. I'm going to skip that section. Now, it wants to know what COC that I belong to. I live in the Jackson. My agency is located in the Jackson metro area. I'm not engaged with the COC, but I'm connected to the COC. Or maybe I don't know which COC I belong to. We have 3 COCs. We have the Central COC, which is the Jackson Metro. We have the Balanced State COC, which covers most of the rural counties. And we have Open Doors Homeless Coalition that covers the coast. You are connected to one of the 3 COCs depending on your location. So identify which one. If you're not sure, you need it to give you that COC information, please let me know. Are you currently receiving federal funds? I'm a new agency, but I do have HUD dollars, so I'm going to say yes here. All right, now I need to provide my agency information. So what's my agency name? I'm going to call us ABC Help. Tax ID number. Please provide this information. This would help. This is the information that goes to HUD, so please make sure it is correct. Where am I? Where's my office located? I'm on 123 Chapter Street. I'm in Jackson. I'm in the state of Mississippi. Try to make sure you fill in the gray areas. My zip code and the county. With the county, you have a drop-down box, so select the county you belong to. And this is where your agency, what county your agency is located in. We do know that you might be located in Hines. There we go. You might be located in Hines County and serve more than just Hines County. That's okay. We just need to know what county your mailing address is located. Okay, physical address is the same as my mailing address. Once again, the county. Oops. Website. If you have a website, please put it there. We do like to look at the websites to see what awesome work you're doing. I know that's an existing website. I put abcna.com. Okay, contact person will be me. Contact email. Business phone number. This is the number we can contact you at. UEI number. So I think it was in 2020 or 2021, they had a switch from DUNS number to UEI number. If you have both numbers put in here, if you only have one, please identify. But we will need the UEI number. Fiscal year end, your agency end of fiscal year. Most agencies end their fiscal year June 30th, so mine will end June 30th, 23. Fax, for those agencies that still have a fax, make sure you put it here. My fax number and my agency number is literally off by 1. Business email, what is the business email? right. Into the total number of years the agency has been in operation. So we've been in operation 20 years. Into the total number of part-time staff employed by the agency. This is part-time staff. We actually have a lot of part-time staff in my imaginary agency. But how much full-time staff do we have? We don't have much. We really rely on part-time staff to get the work done. Describe your agency mission. So when you describe your agency mission, it's a good time to reflect. Is my mission at my agency in line with the ESG program, right? Is my mission at my agency confounding me to a certain demographic or a certain program that is not in line with ESG? So make sure that you are doing something that's within your mission. You're not going outside of what your agency mission is to do, because it will make it difficult for you to provide these services. So our mission is we help people. So your board president, give us the name of your board president. Give us their address and contact information. The executive director. Who is the executive director? This probably be the most likely the person we contact, unless there's someone else listed above. But provide us with that information. Service area. As I mentioned before, your service area may be different in the area that you're located in. So identify all the areas you plan to service. Now, in your service area, according to the 2020 population, how much people was the population total? So my service area, I'm going to say is Jackson and Madison. In that area, I think they have 20,000 people. Key staff. Who are your key staff? How long? What's their experience? What's their title? What's their contact information? Provide the information here. Do you have the staff capacity? And capacity does not only mean how much staff you have, but you have staff who have experience in working with federal programs. Maybe not with ESG, but with other federal or grant programs or programs that serve homeless or at-risk populations. List them here. Partnership. Your partnerships that you identify here must be supported with MOUs. Give us a lot of partners. Show us that you're not doing this in a silo, but you're working with other providers to ensure the best for your clients. The goal of the clients of the program is not just providing temporary assistance, but helping every client or individual that comes through the program get to housing, stability, and sustainability. Moving someone from homeless or at risk of homelessness to self-sufficiency will require you to partner with some agencies. So list the partnering agencies. Maybe you're working with DMH for mental health services to those who have mental illnesses or those who are chronically homeless. Maybe you're working with the health department to ensure that people have access to some type of health care. Maybe you're working with Wind Job Center, which is key because you want people to go from limited to no income to sufficient, significant income. Are you working with Wind Job Center to connect individuals to jobs and help with resume building? Are you working with the VA for your veterans to get them onto some type of HUD bash voucher? Are you working with Section 8 or inside your community to transition them from rapid rehousing to long-term housing stability? What's your partnerships? And are these partners going to help you with reaching your end goal? Are you working with MDOT because you're in a rural community and you don't have transportation to ensure that people have transportation to and from work? All right. Our next tab, eligibility. So all because you're a nonprofit does not guarantee that you can apply for this grant. There's some other requirements that must be considered. This checklist will help us determine if you meet the requirements, and sometimes you may provide information here, and we may need more details, so we will reach out to you. So the first question asks, do you have written policies to ensure that there are drug-free policy to ensure drugs are not happening at your shelter or your facility? Yes or no? Interesting, it was working yesterday. Okay, I won't check it. I know it works, but for some reason it's not working today. So, do you have policy procedures regarding non-discrimination when it comes to the ESG regulations? Does the agency make known that they use their facility to provide resources? And are you sure that everyone in your community have access to these resources? If someone is disabled, maybe they're deaf or blind, do you have a way to ensure that they are aware of the services? If someone don't speak English, do you have a way to ensure that they're able to understand the program is available and resources that can come through the program? If you're a domestic violence agency, do you have appropriate policies for confidentiality? If you're a religious agency, do you agree to provide all eligible applicants under the program with services without or free from religious influence? This includes requiring them to attend a service before providing assistance. Are you a nonprofit or a local government agency? Do you have required match, which includes value and assets or cash dollars or in kind? Do you agree to provide shelter and services to individuals who are homeless and meet the qualifications? Do you agree that all housing, whether the homeless shelter or rental housing with ESG, will meet the minimum standards for inspection? Do you agree that people who qualify for ESG will also be connected to services that they need for wraparound, whether it's housing, medical assistance, mental counseling, or other type of resources? Do you agree that you connect them to long-term resources, which include federal, state, or private assistance? Do you or your agency involve homeless individuals and families to the max extent allowed in regards to policy making or anything like that? Do you involve formerly homeless individuals in policy making and program design? Are you an active member of your COC? If not, do you know who your COC is? Do you need to be connected? Do you have the capacity and a cash flow available for this grant? This grant is a reimbursement grant. So do you have enough cash flow to maintain this grant? Have you received a grant from us before, MHC, where you were deobligated in some or part? If yes, explain and provide attachments. If you received funds previously, have you met the terms and requirements of the contract? If you're a shelter, do you have a certification of approval from a unit of general purpose local government? This is for shelters. Do you currently have an unresolved audit or monitoring finding associated with ESG? Or honestly, with any other federal grant? Do you have any findings or monitoring that's unresolved? Let us know. If you're a non-federal entity, have you expended $750,000 or more in federal awards? Not just ESG, all your federal awards combined. Have you spent or expended more than $750,000? If so, you must do the single audit. Do you serve homeless youth? Doesn't Child Protective Services or award of the state? The ESG funds can be used for runaway homeless youth. But if you are an agency that only serves children that are in Child Protective Service CPS custody, that's not appropriate at this time. Racial equity statement. Please read this statement. Make sure that you are not providing services unintentionally discriminating against a certain population. Program description. So this is an opportunity for you to tell us about your proposal. What are you trying or what do you want to do with the ESG funds? It says here, describe your proposed project. Include project goals, expected outcomes, measures, gaps you intend to fill in the community, partnerships established, site-specific data, evidence, point-in-time data. So the best way to answer this question is first tell us about your community and about your agency. Go in, and I know it's not a lot of space here, but you can scroll down. Then tell us about basic needs. Keep it simple. Finally, tell us about what you plan to do with your program to meet those needs. And close with measures. Where your measures being, we plan to house so much people within so much days. With 0 people coming in, back into homelessness, we plan to increase income by this %. Give us that information there. I know it's not a lot of space, but you can scroll down. And also you can be brief here. Give us detail, but give us summarized detail. Have your board chair put his or her information here, sign in and date it. Now we're getting into specific program components. You describe your project here. This is the general overview. Everything that you want to do with your project should fall under a particular program component. As I mentioned previously, we have 5 program components. We have shelter, street outreach, rapid rehousing, homeless prevention, and HMIS. So after you tell us what you're planning on doing in your general description, now we're going to go and get more detailed information. So with my agency, ABC Help, do we plan to provide street outreach and or emergency shelter? Yes. So we have to complete this section. We plan, and next section tells us the type of services to provide. What services are you planning to provide? Are we going to serve youth? Yeah. We're going to do utility assistance. We're going to do financial literacy. We're going to do homeless services like rental housing services. We're going to do some food. We got to do some job training. All right. Now let's go into detail about services that you provided in the past or currently providing. If you are a shelter, this is a policy plug. If you are a shelter, we can only pay for, in regards to the shelter costs, we can only pay for costs allowed on the shelter, which includes rent. We cannot pay for mortgage. Okay, so if you have a shelter and you do not own it and it's mortgaged, we cannot pay for the mortgage. However, we can pay for rent. So if you have a shelter, you want to add those costs, let us know. If you own it, you have to own your shelter. If not, it needs to be rented. If you own it, rent it, you obtain ownership of the property. I received it in 2013. Let me put the date. It doesn't just take years. You got to put the whole date. So January 8th, 2013, I received it. Okay. We do not have a lease. We actually own the property. What's the average number of clients served annually in my shelter? Actually, what's the average number of clients served annually, period? How do you keep client files confidential? Do you have a system or a procedure in place? Describe your policy procedure for confidential files. What are your eligibility requirements to access your shelter? Do you screen people out? Or is it open to everybody? And what are the reasons why someone will be turned away from your shelter? The Emergency Solution Grant is a low barrier grant. Therefore, you should not be screening people out due to things like they're drunk, they have no income. You cannot require them to sign a lease. You cannot require them to meet a rule like being sober. Okay, only shelters that can put restrictions on their shelter will be the domestic violence shelters. They can say that they're only serving DV individuals or families. General shelters have to be a low barrier for ESG. With these ESG shelters or street outreach services, will these services be integrated with other programs? So if you're a domestic violence agency, do you receive Department of Health funds to pair with your funds, with your ESG funds? If you're not domestic violence agency, but you have a shelter, what are the funds you have that you'll be working with this program with or combining? Maybe you'll do street outreach with ESG and housing with another program. Maybe you'll do shelter with ESG and street outreach with another program. Describe how you plan to use multiple programs together for the best outcome. Average number of days that clients stay in shelter. In the year, what's the average number of days? We're hitting at 60 days. The percent of clients that exit to permanent housing from your shelter. The goal is to move someone from your shelter into housing. Permanent housing is defined as having a unit, rent or own in your name, or someone else, then you're moving out of the shelter into a place where you turn the key. It could be another rapid rehousing program. It could be a subsidy program, but you're moving out of the shelter into housing. So how much was the percent? I'm moving about 60% of my shelter individuals into housing. What's the number of unsheltered persons you engage annually? Not every unsheltered person you talk to or engage will move into shelter. We know street outreach takes a lot of time. So we expect that you will be engaging a lot of people who may not want housing, and that's fine. So I engage for 90 people annually, 19. What is the average number of unsheltered persons engaged and connected to shelter or housing? So these are the ones who said, yeah, I want to go into shelter. I want to go into housing after being engaged in street outreach. All right, so that's my section A, shelter and street outreach. Let's go to section B. So my agency not only have a shelter, we also provide rapid rehousing and homeless prevention. Therefore, I will say yes to this section. What is the average number of persons the program serves annually? We serve about 90 people annually. I said that before. Let's do 40. No. Sorry, we serve 100 people annually. Describe how housing is located and landlords are identified. We know that there is a housing issue in Mississippi. There's a low housing stock. So what are some things that you're doing to ensure that you can identify housing for this population? What are some best practices you're using? Whether you're using a list of private landlords that you work from, maybe you're working with the local tax credit, low income tax credit properties to move people in, or Section 8 housing to move people in. However, or whatever your method is for identifying housing, please describe it here. What types of methods do you use to develop a housing service plan? ESG requires that every applicant receiving rapid rehousing or homeless prevention or street outreach have a service plan. Service plan is your roadmap, just like a discharge plan when you go into the hospital, with steps or with things I must do, with goals I must accomplish in order to be discharged of this program into housing stability. That's going to help the case manager and the client know what's expected, what we have to do to reach our final outcome of stability. So, what type of methods do you use to develop a housing service plan? Describe how direct client assistance is determined, including its frequency. ESG requires that you determine how much services are needed for a client at the beginning, right? So how do you determine how much resources is given to someone? How do you determine in their service plan when to discharge someone? Please describe that here. Number 4, describe how the proposed program in this application will increase exits to permanent housing. Describe your agency housing stability process and what case management services will be offered to the client. What procedures does the program provide or have in place to prevent future evictions? You want to make sure that you actually have a plan to not just serve, but ensure sustainability with individuals that are accessing the program. Number 5, describe how you will monitor returns to homelessness at program discharge. We would like to see if your program is having a great impact on housing stability. Are people receiving housing and moving into long-term stability, or are they coming back into homelessness? Work with your COC and HMIS lead to get this information and provide it in this application. C, HMIS. The ESG program requires that agencies use ESG agencies use HMIS unless they are a domestic violence agency or a legal entity that have a comparable database. All other agencies must use HMIS to report services rendered. So number 1, describe how these funds will contribute to your ability to collect and analyze and report data. Number 2, describe how your agency uses local coordinated entry system to prioritize housing to qualified applicants. The ESG program requires that you participate in coordinated entry system. So that means someone is coming through your COC coordinated entry and they need housing and they will prioritize, you must accept that person and house them. Now, if you deny them, then you need to provide justification reason why. And vice versa, agencies can always refer to the coordinated entry and take clients off. So it's not just up to the coordinated entry to give you applicants. You must go out there and find your applicants. Make sure the community, we did a checklist, right? The community must know that you have this resource. So you will get calls. Once you get calls, you make sure you connect them to coordinated entry so they can be assessed and then you can move forward with assistance that's needed. All right. Our next tab, project information, supportive services. Funds being requested to provide supportive services. There's a lot of support services that are eligible with ESG. However, it depends on the program component that you are using. We have, as I mentioned, 5 program components and different supportive services are allowable under different components. Under outreach, you can provide emergency supplies, emergency health services, emergency mental health services. Under shelter, you can do education, job training, outpatient health services, and life skills. Under housing, you do medical mediation, legal services, and credit repairs. This can be accompanied with other things like with shelter services, And with housing, utilities and rental assistance, it's not limited to these things, but this is something to help with the case management process. Once you identify that, we move on to the next section. So yes, I'm going to do street outreach. That activity, I'm going to do shelter, job training and services. I'm going to do housing stability. I'm going to do credit repair only. And now you cannot pay to repair someone's credit. For credit repair, you're paying for a counselor to help direct them in the right way for repairing their own credit. Okay, number one, what is the average number of clients served annually? And said we served 100 people. Describe how your agency will use eligible supportive services as necessary to help participants to obtain and maintain housing. So you're going to support services. Why are you doing it? And tell me why it's critical. How can it help? Just describe your experience with serving low-income populations, mainly extremely low-income populations, including services provided to those experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. Now, we need to know more about your history, your experience. Finally, describe your organization experience with coordinated services and working collaboratively, right? Doing support services at your agency does not mean you shouldn't work with other agencies to help improve those support services. We like to see that you're pairing up, partnering, collaborating with other entities for a strong service plan and case management process. So describe that process of coordination and collaboration here. And next tab. We're going to talk more about supportive services. This is just the regulations in regards to appropriate funding. It describes what you can do. Emergency health services, it gives you the regulation. This is available under shelter. And street outreach, emergency mental health services available under shelter and street outreach regulations here. Education services available under shelter. Employment services available under shelter. Outpatient health services available under street outreach and shelter. Life skills training available under rapid rehousing, homeless prevention, and shelter. Mediation available under rapid rehousing and homeless prevention. Legal services available under rapid rehousing, homeless prevention, and shelter. Credit repair available under rapid rehousing, homeless prevention. Look at your regulations to get more information. Need analysis. This form was added last year, but we expanded the information here. It should auto-calculate. This is a form actually taken out of our home op HUD requirements. This is a HUD form that they used that I thought was a good place to add here. If you have questions about this form, please let us know. Detail about what is needed can be found in the little comments, okay? So we're looking at in your community, the counties that you identify. We want to know how much housing inventory and shelter inventory you have and how much homeless people you have to identify the gaps in your community, okay? Now, if you don't have a county level data, work with your COC to get a COC level data. For emergency shelter, it says, what is the total number of emergency shelter beds in your community? Do not include hotel motel. So in our community, we have 15 shelter beds. For families, for adults only, we have 20. For vets, we have none. And here, transitional housing, what is the total number of transitional housing beds you have in your community? We have 5 family transitional housing beds. And for adults, we have 10. We have 5 vets transitional housing beds. Permanent supportive housing. What is the total number of permanent supportive housing beds in your community? Get this number from the COC. In your counties, we have 6 units for family. We have 3 units for families, and we have 7 units for adults only. We have no permanent supportive housing beds for beds only. Other permanent housing, rapid housing, SS for rapid housing for COC, rapid housing for ESG, and SSVF. Once again, you get this number from your COC. This is rapid housing, which includes ESG and COC, rapid housing, and SSVF beds. How much family units do we have? Based on mass here, we have, in my community, we have 20 families. Adults only, we have 15. SSVF beds set aside for veterans only, we have about 5. All right, so in your community, let's look at the homeless population. How much sheltered homeless families do you have? I have about 30 families that are sheltered. Adults only who are sheltered, how much adults only do you have? I have about 60. Vets, we have 6. Unsheltered homeless, we have about 65. Adults, no, families, sorry, we have 5. Adults, we have 65. Vets, we have 3. At risk of homelessness, we had a lot came through. All right, so it should help us identify the gaps. If you think that the analysis may be off, just let me know. We will reconfigure the numbers. Okay, let's go on. Program outcome measures. Now you are going to tell us what you expect your program outcomes to be. So program outcomes. Our first step is to describe your program goals. In your overview, you told us your goals, so give us more detail. What's your program goals? How does your program goals align with the federal strategic plan to end homelessness? And align with MAC's 5-year consolidated plan. You can find the federal strategic plan to end homelessness on online. You can just Google it. And MAC's 5-year con plan you can find on our website. Make sure that you're working within our goals, right? We set 5-year goals. And there's a federal strategic plan to end homelessness. So whatever you're doing, you need to be within line with these goals. Also, to tell us how you plan to measure these goals. All right, so who am I planning to serve? Identify the persons and households you plan to serve. When you identify the persons, we expect that number to be more than the households, okay? So my first quarter, I anticipate serving 10 persons in 15 households. My second quarter, I'm going to keep it stagnant. We're going to serve the same amount of people each year. That will give us a total. And this is for street outreach services. So it breaks down every service, and you must let us know who you plan to serve. I plan to serve the same amount of people in every single program until the end of the year. We know that this number might change. It's okay. We'll work with you with that. Homeless prevention, I expect that to be a little bit less. I have caps lock on, don't need that. At the beginning, because prevention always takes time to round up because people need to know that it's happening, and then it will go up over the year. Shelter, we want to keep our shelter stagnant, the same amount of people because we have a certain number of beds in our shelter. There we go. All right, so let's go into the last section on this page. Income. ESG do have an income requirement for homeless prevention. Individuals seeking homeless prevention must be 30% AMI, which is extremely low. So you must make sure that you are appropriate in regards to where your client income, your category your clients fall into. Because of that requirement of extremely low, 30% of everyone I'm serving will fall in the extremely low income category. Oh, sorry, it's percent. Ha. All right, so 100% of our clients will be served that way. Make sure your total adds up to 100%. Activities tab. Once again, we're going into activities that's available. Tell us the counties that you plan to serve. Are you requesting funding for? Identify all the counties. When we do your monitoring, we look at the counties that you end up serving, and we compare that to what you identify, and they need to match. If you decide that you need to increase your coverage area because the population wasn't there as you anticipated, let us know in writing formally the change in your coverage area. Describe the population you intend to serve. Also describe the activities. We want to do street outreach. These are the activities that are allowed. Shelter. We want to do a little bit of everything on, and so we're going to identify that. Now, if you're not familiar with these activities and what's appropriate, scroll on down. We have more detailed information about the regulations here. And you can read up on it before making a determination. Match. Let's go on to match. As I mentioned, match is dollar for dollar. What you ask for, it must be what you're going to match it with. So, and the other thing we look at is the total amount of staff costs. Make sure you read the information about matching and also our waiver for new agencies before you start this page. Consider how much of your costs of the grant is going towards staff costs. ESG does not allow for more than 50% of your grant to be used on staff costs. So no more than 50% can be used on staff costs. This will help us determine that you made that choice appropriately. So I plan to use $20,000 straight down. Staff activities, we're going to keep it as simple as possible. We want to keep it less than 20%. So we're going to put that straight down. There we go. Now I have 100,000 I'm going to ask for in funds, 100,000 expenses, but I have no match. So it's saying that I don't make the dollar for dollar match. So make sure you understand what's appropriate match. Read it here. Also go back to our manual to get more information. Match. I'm going to have some cash match. I'm going to have some hug rack match. I'm going to have some staff time. Yeah, staff and other grants. Match. I'm going to do that. What else I have for match? I'll do 4. I have some VA. So I'm going to match this. I'm going to keep it set for 10,000. We have cash. I'm going to set you get attached your supporting documents, right? The bank statements of supporting documents for her to have a grant We have a award letter, staff. I have where I paid them in the bank, through the bank, VA. I don't have my award letter yet, but I have a commitment letter, so we have to actually. I'm off of my amounts. Should be 23 down. And my last amount will be I guess I have some money from, I don't know what else. Okay. Oh yeah, we have a building by shelter. And I'll explain it there. And now I'm dollar for dollar match. I'm good to go. That'd be 20,000. There we go. No gaps. Oh, we're not over. All right. Now we end on the budget page. This is going to be the most difficult page you're going to complete. It has been updated since the last grant for more detailed information, but it will help us and help you better track your spending through the grant share by specific eligible activities. Okay, so I already have this here. On our funding, we're going to spend 20,000 each quarter to get our full 100,000, full 80,000. I try to aim for 100. I don't know why I keep on putting 20,000. It should be 25,000. For our match funds, we already have all our match identified. So we'll just go ahead and list them all here as grants. We had grants, and then we had cash. We had staff, and then we had building. And the grants we had HUD and VA. So now it must equal up. So this is going to be 100,000. At the end, I should have 200,000. Okay. All right. Non-match funds. I do have some non-match funds. I have cash from somewhere else. Maybe I have a store that brings in some money. And our quarterly income for the store is about 20,000. I love the 20s. Okay. Other sources of money I might have lying around that may be used. We're trying to see a capacity to manage a reimbursement grant. Okay, I think I might have some other stuff I could add to here. Do I? I really don't. But I'll put something in there. How big? Okay. Now, your projected project expenses. We do allow for budget modifications, so what you put on this may change through the year, but this will help you budget or balance your accounts a little better or project out your accounts a little better and help us as we maintain this grant, monitor this grant. You cannot fill in these categories anymore. You have to do it from here. So click on the activity you want to complete. It will take you to this lovely page. And then that's how you will be able to add the information that you need. Once again, we have 5 funding activities. So what I want to do is about 20,000 for each one of my activities. I'm going to do about 10,000 This one. Utilities, let's do utilities. Oops. All right. If you have received this award before, we'd like to see your spending habits previously. So make sure you let us know how did you spend last year. And I spent about the same amount last year. Except for the last quarter because we had a snowstorm. And of course, my utilities, my services, my case management staff funds went up because of unexpected expenses. All right, go home. And you can see. There you go. There we go. So let's go on to the next one. Street outreach. Go home, go on to the next one. Homeless prevention. You know, you just complete them as you go. Oops. Try to keep it as simple as possible. Property housing. And homeless prevention. I mean, HMIS. Some courses here. All right, let's finish. Let's add some stuff in there. Round up my numbers. All right, there we go. All right, so now we get our expenses. And all that should add up appropriately. Next, let's look at our budget summary. Everything carries over. You shouldn't have any gaps. So you can see here, we asking for 100,000. We have 100,000 in match. We have 80,000 in non-match. Our total projected resources is 200,000. We have other sources of income there. So now we have no gaps. You can add more funds here if you want to, like cash on hand. We have 15,000 on hand. Non-cash on hand, other expenses that you might have not considered. Finally, we have our indirect cost system. These are for agencies who have an indirect cost rate already that they use, or agencies that have experience using it in the past. It's allowed for anyone. If you have not used indirect before, please read up on the regulations. If you don't have an indirect cost rate set for your agency, we recommend that you use the 10% de minimis rate. If you do have one set for your agency, you must provide that negotiated rate. Okay, getting on to the home stretch. Past performance. This is for agencies that have received funds before. I want to see how good you did. The reporting here is listed here. You're going to tell us how much funds you received and how much funds you spent and how much individuals you served. Finally, after you complete the entire packet, you will sign it, put your title, and date it. You must also don't forget to complete attachment A, describing your experience with federal or state grants or private grants. Have your board chair sign this and date it with their title. And once you get to this section and you sign it, you have completed the application. Go through the checklist when you submit your application. Go through your checklist and make sure you have everything that is needed, all the attachments. If you have any questions, if you have problems with the form, as you saw, I had little difficulties with one page, but everything on the website should be good. Let us know, and we'll be happy to help troubleshoot. Thank you for spending the last hour and 10 minutes with me. I look forward to working with everyone in the future. And if you just need more information or guidance, feel free to reach out to me or anyone on my team. Our contact information is available in the application. Once again, thank you and have a blessed day.